and that mirrored state law with federal law, and that our businesses won't have to pay taxes on the PPP loans that they received. That would have been a punch to the gut at a time that our our businesses couldn't afford that. So that was a major thing that we got through. It's a lot harder than it should have been, but we got it done. So that's all that matters in the end. House Bill 413 provided unemployment insurance tax relief for businesses. So while PPP loan was on one level, UI, we know this, that it's not state funds. It is state funds, but it's from taxed on businesses. So businesses pay for unemployment insurance. We had a very healthy account in Kentucky right before COVID. And not only is that down to zero, but we had to take an $865 million loan out from the federal government. We haven't spent all that. We've spent the lion's share of it, 75% of it or so. But we had to, not only have we depleted all that was in that account, but we went, some $600 million in the hole. So businesses have to make up that amount. And so we're really worried that businesses would be surcharged an amount just to get that account, the unemployment insurance fund, back to solvent. And they hopefully we'll be able to not do that at all, but we'll certainly be able to delay that because of House Bill 413, which said that they would give them tax relief, and then couple that with some of the amount of money we're spending in ARPA funds. ARPA funds are the amount of money that's coming to the state government and to local governments and school boards from the federal government. And so we put $505 million in ARPA funds into paying back that or shoring up the unemployment fund, actually to pay back the loan from the federal government. That was something that we don't work together enough across party lines. This session was a highlight of that, but this bill was a highlight of the opposite. It took Governor Beshear and legislative leaders and Senator McConnell and Congressman John Yarmuth to work together to make sure that those dollars could be used for the purpose of shoring up the unemployment insurance fund. It was unclear that was going to be able to happen until McConnell and Yarmuth and Beshear and legislative leaders got together. So that was a very good thing for our businesses. We passed Senate Bill 5. Senate Bill 5 is a liability protection bill. There are, when you hear and that includes cities like Middletown, like Douglas Hills, and it includes, it would also include private businesses. And so when you talk about liability protection, that sounds easy and everybody's for that, right? Well, it's not that simple, because we don't want to go too far. And I had somebody from Anchorage, a constituent of mine, call, and she said, and by the way, it was amended, but the initial version, she calls me and she says, my brother was in a facility and he was on suicide watch. He ended up committing suicide within the last 6 months, unfortunately, obviously. And he was on suicide watch. Now, this facility took the money. They took the money to watch my brother, but they didn't watch. And I don't want them to be able to say, well, we don't have any liability, even though we were taking the money to watch your brother because of COVID. We couldn't have enough people show up or whatever. So the initial bill that passed the Senate went further than I think it should have in allowing it. Even allowed liability protections for vehicles if you were transporting needles, for example, to hospitals for vaccines or for whatever reason. And it was for a year even after the emergency would have ended. So anyway, I say those things. That was a bill that was initially filed. The House we sunk our teeth into it, and it is real. Now it has to be contagion, spread, or directly related to COVID. So I think that was a bill that was much better, that protects our businesses and gives them protection against liability that they shouldn't have. If somebody gets COVID, you shouldn't be able to sue a restaurant and say, you should have to pay for my complications from COVID. That's something that you probably won't be able to prove up in a case. So let's go ahead and protect the businesses from those types of claims, and so they can fearlessly get back to work. We want them to get back open, get their employees back to work. And so that's what Senate Bill 5 does. It protects businesses and government entities, while at the same time not going too far and disallowing claims that aren't directly related to COVID. So that's another thing that we did for businesses, because we want them to have the courage and the protections to go ahead and open back up as quickly as possible and safely as possible. related to businesses, but also related to schooling and life in general. We put 300 million total into broadband funding. That obviously has not only been very important for the last year, but that's the way of the future. And Kentucky, we want to capitalize on that, not only for what we already have, but we want to attract people to come to Kentucky. So one of the new models of employment, and I know Ron knows about this very well, is there'll be companies that exist wherever, and their employees don't have to be on site anymore. Well, they can be in their homes anywhere. Well, we want them to be in their homes in Kentucky. And so we've not only shored up our broadband operations, but we've also allowed a tax credit to employees who are working at home, off-site from the business, try to attract that kind of new business. Kentucky's an affordable place to live. It's a great place to live, and we want the entrepreneurs to be here in our area. Some other things that we did initially, obviously, COVID driving a lot of the session. We came into session with guns blaring, so to speak, to address some of the things that we thought the governor went too far. And I think the governor's done a really good job overall on protecting our people, on making sure that we're taking this very serious virus, taking it very seriously. It is very serious. I read something in the Journal of American Medical Association just last week that said the increased deaths in the nation over what was expected was 22%. And so, COVID is very real. And I think the governor on whole deserves a lot of credit. We do think that he went too far on a number of things, and a lot of things were arbitrarily done. So when we came into session, we passed House Bill 1, Senate Bill 1, and Senate Bill 2. And what they did was Senate Bill 1 said that if anybody can comply with the CDC guidelines, this attacked directly our belief that some of the edicts were arbitrary, is that if a business can comply with CDC requirements, then that business can open. We were the only state in the country that shut down chiropractors. We had to fight to get those back open. We didn't allow things like outdoor volleyball, which on the whole scheme of things isn't the most important things in the world, but I use that by way of example. And those things didn't make any sense to us. And so we wanted business. It also didn't make sense to us that you could go buy, I could buy my wife flowers at Kroger, but not at the Country Squire. Or I could buy my wife a blouse at Target, or go to Lowe's where you had to fight and throw elbows to get a parking space. But I couldn't go to the Prickly Pear, in downtown Middletown to buy a blouse for my wife. Those kinds of things didn't make sense to us. So we thought if a business could comply with the CDC regulations, they should be open, and the governor ought not be picking and choosing what we thought were winners and losers. Those were straight party line votes, and we had to overturn a veto. That's Senate Bill 1. I'll get into the court case on that in just a second. Senate Bill 2 was similar in that we have two ways to enact regulations in Kentucky. One is the normal way. It's you promulgate them, you put them out for the public to comment on them. They go through this long process of comment, and then you enact them. The legislature looks at them, and then the governor approves, and so forth and so on. It's a long process, not appropriate for an emergency, no doubt. But then we also have an allowance for emergency regulations that's in state statute that's been there for decades. The governor was disregarding all of those statutes. Because he had the right under the law to suspend them, and he was doing that. And we didn't think that we should be enacting emergency regulations without any comment and without following the law that's been on the books for decades. So Senate Bill 2 addressed that. House Bill 1 was in line with Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 2 as well, and addressed allowing businesses to get back open as soon as possible. Those three bills the governor vetoed those bills, and then we overrode the vetoes. And the night that we overrode the vetoes, the governor filed a lawsuit in Franklin Circuit Court. The Franklin Circuit Court judge enjoined enforcement of those bills. The governor brought a lawsuit against the attorney general, and the legislature enjoined enforcement of the bills. The attorney general and the legislature has appealed, and they're now in the Supreme Court. The argument that they're making is the attorney general doesn't have any power to enforce the bills anyway, so you don't have the right parties. But they're also making a substantive argument as well. It's not clear whether or not the Franklin Circuit judge's injunction applies in Jefferson County. because his jurisdiction is in Franklin County. So I think the better argument on the law is that the emergency regulations, except for the ones that were extended by the legislature in House Joint Resolution 77, are no longer the law in Lexington, in Louisville, or anywhere else outside Franklin County. I would, as a lawyer, I caution my clients that the enforcers don't see it that way. And so if you you put stools back at your bar, for example, the health department may come out and think they have the authority to shut you down, take your liquor license away. So be very careful. But that question hopefully will be resolved very soon in the Kentucky Supreme Court. I mentioned House Joint Resolution 77, which the Franklin Circuit Court just enjoined yesterday. What we did there was we took all of the governor's executive orders and we extended a number of them, most of them for business protections, for granting grace or leave from various requirements for license type things. And then we ended a number of the emergency regulations that the governor had put in place because we didn't think they were no longer necessary. And that was allowed by House Bill 1, which changed the law that had been on the books for many decades, giving the governor certain powers in an emergency. So we think the governor should have a number of powers in an emergency. If it's a local issue or statewide, it should be for 30 days. If it's a local issue, it can be extended by the county judge working with the governor. If it's a statewide issue that needs to go beyond 30 days, we think the governor should call the General Assembly back into session for us to agree to extend. And the point of that is, we don't think anybody, whether it's me or Bevan or Bashir or anybody, should have the unfettered discretion to be the sole person to declare what is and what is not an emergency, and then to keep it going indefinitely. So while we want the governor to be able to have the power to determine what's an emergency and to address it with very broad and robust powers for 30 days or extended much longer than that at the local level, statewide, he needs the approval of the General Assembly to go beyond that 30 days. So House Joint Resolution 77 is recognition from the General Assembly that COVID is such an emergency that should be extended well beyond 30 days. And so we've done that and agreed with him on most of his emergency regulations. So let's go in. Those were very partisan things. And now let's go into another thing that unfortunately was partisan, and that's House Bill 563. House Bill 563 is the school choice bill. It provides a fund, $25 million, that can be used for public or private students, families that send their kids to public or private schools, for tutoring, for things like getting Chromebooks, for those types of things. But in counties that are over, I think it ended up being 90,000. For counties with over 90,000 population, it may be 100,000, I think it was 90,000. Students who go to private schools, if they qualify, can use it for tuition. So for example, in our own area, and this is the reason that I voted for it, the main reason I voted for it, in our own area, if a family believes that their child would benefit from going to Summit because they have learning difficulties, and they're not like me or like most people on this call where they can squeeze and afford sending their kid to the Summit, that will help them pay the tuition to send their child to a place like the Summit. It wouldn't only apply to the Summit, to be fair. It would also apply to our other wonderful private schools in Middletown and in the area. St. Margaret Maryville, where I said my kids would you be eligible to do that? Of course, I won't be, and people like me, because we make way too much money. I think it's 170% of the poverty line, federal poverty line, are qualified, and it's supposed to go to needs-based first, so forth. So that's the school choice bill. I will note, because it's become extremely partisan, and I don't understand why. It was a bipartisan bill, but it's mostly Republicans for it and Democrats against it. Is this bill, even in a more private school favorable way, was introduced for 7 straight years by Democrat leadership before Republicans took over. So the fact that it was highly partisan, Larry Clark filed it, for example, Tommy Thompson. So the fact that it was highly partisan is, I think very unfortunate. It didn't used to be partisan, and it only became partisan in 2017 when we took over. And I think that's unfortunate, but I think it's an important step forward. I polled my district, by the way, just so you know. and it was overwhelmingly in favor, upwards of upper 60 percentile were in favor of school choice. So we passed House Bill 563. A massive bill, which I think I'm very proud of, is House Bill 574, dealing with elections. We hear across the country all this controversy about suppressing the vote and all this kind of things. I think this is an issue where Kentucky can be very proud. If it wasn't unanimous, it was darn close to unanimous. It may have been unanimous. The governor and the Secretary of State, Michael Adams, joined together with Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate, and we passed 574 to liberalize, if you will, the elections rules. So, in this past year, we had an unprecedented elections process that showed us what we could do. Before COVID, I filed a bill, House Bill 594 last year, that would expand voting opportunities in Kentucky. And that was a heavy lift. And all we did there was fix a couple things, expand voting hours by an hour on election day, do a little bit with absentee ballots. And I was getting all kinds of pushback and couldn't get much traction. I wanted to make it easier to vote. Well, because of COVID, Secretary Adams and Governor Beshear joined together and had a much more open voting opportunity or apparatus this year, and it worked. There was not rampant fraud in Louisville and across Kentucky, and I think our people really enjoyed the options that they had. So we wanted to keep some of those. And so what we've done now is we've expanded early voting. You can go anywhere that's open, and I'll get to what that means in a minute, but you can go anywhere for 3 days of no excuse early in-person voting. So, I voted at Ramada this past year over off Hurstbourne Lane, 7 days before or whatever. And we're going to keep that for 3 days, that it's going to be unexcused. There's no excuse. You just show up and you can vote just like we're election day. We've expanded a little bit the mail-in, although we're not going to have mail-in like we did this past year, where it was some 6 weeks or something. We're going to go back. It's much closer to where it was before, which is a needs-based. If you're not going to be in Kentucky, or in your county, I should say, if you're not going to be in your county for the election day or the 3 days where it's no excuse early voting, or if you're ill or infirm and can't get to the polls on one of those days, then you can vote by mail, absentee ballot. So we've tried to make it much easier to vote for our people. When I say if it's open, here's something I'm really excited about, and that is, we normally have precincts. I voted Owl Creek. There's one at Eastern High School. There's a lot of people vote at Middletown Elementary. A lot of people vote Bonnie at Crosby, as you know, one of the biggest voting locations in Jefferson County, actually. So what we've done is we've said we're going to keep those, but also we can learn from what we've done this last year and have super centers. We had 4 in the primary. I think we had 12, maybe countywide in the general election. We voted. Most of us voted at the Ramada Inn or the fairgrounds were locations. I think Crosby was a location that people could vote at. And so we're saying we can have these super centers in addition to the precincts as well. And so if you're working downtown, or if you're working in the South End, or if somebody comes, from J-Town to work in Middletown, which we encourage everybody to do, they can vote close to where they work and not have to go, not have to make sure they hustle home or vote early in the morning before they get kids off to school or whatever. So I'm very happy with the super center idea. Absentee ballots, by the way, if you're going to mail in because you're not going to be present, or if you're too ill or infirm, you can do anytime between 45 days before the election and 14 days before the election, you can request your ballot. So that's a pretty broad day. So our time frame. I'm really happy that we were able to get that done in a bipartisan way. As I said, there's so much negative going on right now across the country, moving all-star games and companies and whatever you think about that. I'm not going to comment on that, but I will say that's not the experience of Kentucky. We came together on the most important thing, and that's our elections, and got that done in a bipartisan way. Last thing I'll say, there's a lot more, but I'll hit a few things quickly. In the budget, we have wonderful budget numbers, largely because we tax unemployment benefits in Kentucky. And so it's to no small measure, I say, built on sugar, because those are federal dollars coming to Kentucky that we're taxing. So it's not It does not say our economy is strong. Our economy is not strong right now. Way too many businesses not open, way too many folks on unemployment, which we're all trying to address, the governor and the legislature. But we have more revenues than we anticipated that we would have. We put a lot of money into the rainy day fund. We have about 29 days of expenses that we can pay for. Most states have anything between 25 and 45, so we're right in the middle of that, which we were happy to do. 4 years ago, we had less than a week that we could cover, so we've tried to get that in. There's another thing that's not glamorous, that no one will talk about, but it shows the conservative nature of how we've done budgets in the last few years, and that's this. Decades ago, Skipper, you'll remember this from Governor Patton days, and it was predated Governor Patton. Decades ago, our state government took off the last month of funding, and so we actually didn't pay June's obligations until July. So that was a budget gimmick that allowed us to, save some money and do some budgetary things. Well, it worked for 1 year, but then you ultimately the bills have to be paid. Well, this year we're actually paying 13 months because we're catching up, and we're no longer doing that budget gimmick. So that's 1/13 of our expenses that we saddled on to this budget, all the while putting more money into our rainy day fund. So we've got a number of dollars that we spent on things like vocational schools, because not everybody goes to universities, and we're trying to really provide this opportunity for our blue collar families and workers. And so that's another thing that we've done. I could continue to go on and on. I'm gonna end on one thing because I think this is very important, another bipartisan thing, and that is Senate Bill 4. We've not only had the COVID problems this past year, obviously, but we've had the fight for civil justice that was not only caused by or catalyzed by Breonna Taylor's death, but also national issues. But in Louisville, we have the more local catalyst in the death of Breonna Taylor, which was a terrible tragedy. I think no matter where you are on the political spectrum, we all should agree that that young lady should be living today. And there was mistakes made, whether they were fraudulent or not. I'll let the courts figure that out. But that young lady should be alive today, and she's not. And so what we've done is we joined together, and Miss Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother, was a leader in this. So was the ACLU and a number of other people to craft Senate Bill 4, which was introduced and pushed very hard by Senate President Robert Stivers. And what it does is it puts a lot more restrictions on when there can be a no-knock warrant. And so no-knock warrants shouldn't be, because they provide such an enhanced opportunity for danger for the persons in the home, but also the officers. They shouldn't be used in the war on drugs. They should be used for life, right? So if someone's life is in jeopardy, then it might be legitimate to come in and have a no-knock warrant, but not for drugs. I mean, we need to apprehend those people in other ways. Maybe in a knock warrant, maybe get them while they're at work, whatever, but not a no-knock warrant in the middle of the night. So we've limited the crimes that can be subject to no-knock warrants, and then we put a lot of protections on them. Like, for example, the officer has to get sign off by his supervisor, sign off by a prosecutor, and sign off by the judge. And so that puts the protections in place. And if we had those, hopefully, maybe not, but hopefully, maybe Breonna Taylor would be allowed today. But hopefully, going forward, that kind of a mistake won't happen again, and that kind of tragedy. So I think everybody's proud of Senate Bill 4, that it came together and was very bipartisan, and that we could make that happen. A lot of other things, but I've taken 24 minutes and 50 seconds, a little bit over time. I'll answer any question about anything. And if anybody on here knows me, I'm no holds barred. So ask whatever you want. And I'm probably too blunt in my response, but I'm going to give you what I think.
Representative Nemes. So the school choice legislation, was that particularly only for 2 or 3 counties?
So it was initially for all counties. That failed, and Representative Jerry Miller, who also has some in Middletown, put an amendment on there that it would apply to anyone over, I don't know if it's 150 or 100, and then it was amended down further into the Senate. I think the ultimate decision was 90,000, right? So it doesn't apply statewide.
Okay, so then you come along and every time it seems as though legislation is passed, it applies to everybody except Metro Louisville or Jefferson County, over and over and over again. And so the one House bill that we had that was up there, the comment was, well, we're not going to do this it's only for one county.
Right.
So my question is, how do we get that straightened out? Because if you're only passing legislation for 3 counties out of 120, why is it not appropriate? It's not a war on Louisville, it's a war on the cities in Louisville, Metro, Jefferson County. And I want to applaud you for your testimony on the House bill that we had. I was rather insulted by Joe Girth and his editorial that not only made fun of cities, they made fun of the servants that are elected in those cities, and they even made fun of our names. So I want to assure you that we're going to work with you and try to get this passed, but I don't understand why it's okay for 3, but it's not okay for 1.
Well, I would say there's 2 S's in Douglas.
Yes, there is.
I can see that on the flag behind you. Skipper knows that. He lives in Douglas Hills.
Right there.
He's one of your residents. I wouldn't claim him if I were you, but he's there. But I know I noticed that. Look, Joe Girth is my friend. Legitimately, he's my friend. But he offends me a lot of times. I don't. Let me get to your question. So this bill, I think, applies to 8 counties, Bonnie, not just 3. But but same thing. Your point is it doesn't apply across the state, and I get that. The thought is, you get it passed. We believe that it will show tremendous benefits, and that in 2 or 3 or 4 years, we're going to have a number of families who are sitting at that table saying, here's what it's meant for my child. And then it's going to be impossible to stop it going statewide. But it's a, we have pilot projects. This is not a pilot project, but in some ways it is. And so we think that's the reason that it was so important to get it in there in any way we could. And that's the way that we could get it done this time. The quote unquote war on Louisville, that drives me crazy. Because, counties are established by a constitution. They've been established from the beginning. Cities are established by state law. So Louisville was established by the legislature in 67C, KRS chapter 67C. And anytime Louisville wants to make changes, and there's been scores of changes to 67C since Louisville was created. And those weren't quote unquote wars on Louisville. Most of the stuff in House Bill 309, which I think the bill you're referring to, was requested by the Democrats on the council. Not everything, but most of it was, giving council the ability to hire their own lawyers, giving council the ability to review settlements over $1 million. Those are things that were requested by the council. There were a few things requested by the mayor as well that we put in there. Not everything, but most of the things. One of the things that I really want to fight for is the ability of our cities to annex. They have it in every county in Kentucky except for ours. And so if Owl Creek, which is where I live, if we want to join Middletown or Linden or Douglas Hills, which are 3, or Anchorage, which are the 4, of course, we're in Louisville, but those are the 4 cities that we touch. If we want to join one of those cities and one of those cities wants to have us, we should be able to join one of those cities. Middletown totally surrounds a particular neighborhood. And if they want to join, and if Middletown wants to join them, wants them to join, they should be able to do that, like they can in Bullitt County, like they can in Oldham County, which I also represent. I would also say that one other thing is really important that our East End folks need to get behind. It's not as important to us because we already have cities. We've got the beautiful cities of Linden and Douglas Hills and Meadowvale. I mean, we've got wonderful cities, right? Well, the South End doesn't, and we need to support incorporation, not only annexation. J-Town's got a great thing going. Why can't Fern Creek have that? Why can't Valley Station or PRP or Fairdale? Why can't they have that? We know, and this is controversial. I'm sorry to say it. I'll just say it the way I see it. We know that merger's not been great for our people. It's been worse for the folks in Valley Station. I come from Valley Station. It's been worse for those areas. Why do I say that? Because Mayor Fisher demonstrably doesn't fight for those folks. And here's why I say that. I'm not just throwing bombs at Mayor. I've received 2 road plans from Mayor Fisher for Louisville. 10 roads were on one, 14 roads were on another. 0 of those roads were outside the Watterson. 0. When he comes to my office and he gives me his list of to-dos, nothing applies to outside the Watterson. Nothing. And while we are, let's put it where it is. While we're wealthy enough to take care of ourselves, we're entitled to the benefits of city government that we help pay for as well. While we're wealthy enough to take care of ourselves, my uncles and aunts and my friends in Fairdale, they're not as well off. And they need Louisville to step up for them. Louisville's not stepping up for them. So we need to let them step up for themselves. So we need to get behind annexation and incorporation, which will improve those areas in our community. And even perhaps more importantly, I have a number of folks from the West End that come to my office. They want to incorporate. They even have a name for the area they want to incorporate, which might go a long way. I don't know, but it might go a long way if those folks want to do it, just like those folks in Fairfield want it. It might go a long way to helping community policing relations if they can police themselves. Do you ever get any negatives about Middletown Police Department? I don't. I know those guys. The folks over at the Cheddar Box, they know those guys. So if there's a problem, they're going to call Byron and they're going to give them help. They're going to call the police officer and say, hold on a second, that's not how we. And if they're more locally controlled in the West End, South End, East End, doesn't matter, then they're going to control their business. And I think it'll help the community. So anyway, that's something I think we should be fighting for in the years to come.
Jason,
Uh-oh, Skipper's coming.
have you seen polling on any question regarding attitudes of merger that you can share? I've not heard of a poll for attitudes of merger. Have you got a feel for that? Because I have no feel.
Yeah, Skipper, I have not seen any polling. When it comes up, and I don't bring it up when I'm on people's porches, but I'm on porches all the time. I don't bring it up, but when it comes up, it's unanimously against. It's not. Let me be careful in my wording because this is a very important question. It's not that we're that people aren't proud to be from Louisville. I'm proud to be from Louisville. It's not that we're not proud of merger and all the benefits. It's that it hasn't lived up to, and I think largely because the people who run the city of Louisville haven't pushed for it to live up to the promises that were made. And so, for example, the urban services district, they get taxed differently than we do. They're supposed to pay for their services. We don't get garbage. We shouldn't be paying for the garbage. We don't have fire. Excuse me, we have fire. We don't have EMS. So we shouldn't be paying for their EMS, or we have EMS, but not fire. I had it backwards. So we shouldn't be paying for theirs. We pay for ours, and an extra 10 cents for Anchorage, Middletown, and then an extra 4 cents for the EMS. Yet, and the law is that they're not allowed to take our general tax money to pay for urban services things. Yet they do. They pay for fire trucks. They pay for a lot of things out of our tax dollars for services that we don't get, that we're not allowed to get. So merger has not. Those are the types of things that people bring up when it comes up. But Skipper, I'm not aware of any poll. And
no, I'm not either. And I guess here's what I would think happens, and it happened probably back, I don't know when all the cities said we don't want to be a part of the city of Louisville. There was a proliferation of cities. And I would say if we open that door, there would be a proliferation of Fairdales and Fern Creeks and Okolona and every little community, and not all of them would survive, which is fine. But I would think it could be a mess of those that want to do it. And not sure if it's a positive image for our city. But I've not seen any data on the dissatisfaction with services on a poll. I've never heard of somebody doing it. We've been blessed to have some pretty dynamic mayors. Someone said to me this morning, the business community has been able to rest because they've had some dynamic mayors to pick up what they need to do. So I don't know. Opening that door could be a proliferation of, oh, I want to be a city. And then they got to get into the governing and the legislature, you know what it is, and that's to some degree, that's not why. What do we got? We got, Bonnie, how many are in the Southwest? Cities in the Southwest? Not many.
Zero.
Shavely. And that's about
really
it.
Southwest.
And everything's east of J-Town, I guess. And those 80 cities, it's just interesting because I can just see people run around saying, we're going to be a city. and my subdivision is going, so anyway, it's got to be thought through, got to be thought through.
It
And I
does.
don't know where the people are on Metro. I don't know.
Well,
know.
I think it could be, one thing it could be is that you go by a population amount of folks that want to do it. You don't just establish a 150
Right.
person. But the other thing, if you want to know about polling, just jump on Facebook. And if that question is brought up, you can read it on any stream, anywhere it goes. And the same comment is made that we're not getting what we're paying for. And,
Well,
and
that tends to be people that want to complain. So
Right.
I'd like to see,
here-
to see the general public's attitude on,
Yeah, and
do you
I
want to
think,
keep Metro or not? And does it help us economic wise? I don't know that.
now the question isn't whether you want to keep Metro. The answer to that is yes. I don't, that's not the question. Question is whether you want to have your own little city. And I would say the best answer to the question is this. It takes 75% of those who vote to incorporate to agree to incorporate or agree to annex. So that's the poll that matters. It's the people that are in that particular area. And I would suggest that the fact, by the way, Shively's not in the Southwest. I'm Dixie Highway boy. We don't claim Shively. I don't think Shively claims to be Southwest either. So Shively's not in the Southwest. But the fact that they have 0 and we have 80, that to me, as grown up in the South End, shows that that's not fair. You know, do you think Anchorage would want to lose its city? No. So why can't Valley Station have theirs? Middletown, we're proud of our city. Why can't Fern Creek have its? And until, so anyway, but the poll that matters is the poll of the people who vote in that area. And it takes a super majority of those folks to do it.
Okay. Any other questions for Jason or comments?
Jason, not so much about this session, but coming up in 22, am I correct in thinking that redistricting is going to be on the agenda?
No doubt about it. So there's a lawsuit that was filed. And the Biden administration and the plaintiffs in that lawsuit have agreed, the court order, to comply with the court order, which said they have to give the data to the states by August. And so that gives plenty of time for us to redistrict and comply with the constitutional requirements. I would note that the Kentucky Constitution does not say anything about the census. It requires us to redistrict every 10 years. So that's coming up whether we get the census numbers or not. We will get the census numbers in time to redistrict and comply with our constitutional obligations. And that will unquestionably be done. I think the local governments, Ron, you correct me if I'm wrong here. I wasn't in office 10 years ago. I think the local governments have an extra year to do it after the General Assembly does it. I think that's right. But I'll have to check on that. But redistricting will occur in the Kentucky legislature and Congress in 22.
Well, anything that you can do to help reduce the amount of split precincts for cities would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, and you guys have a few, don't you?
Middletown has 11 precincts, only 4 are within the city. The rest of them are split.
Okay.
we have 7 and there's 1. There's
Okay.
1 or 2.
Yeah, so it's, it makes the cities hard to know whether, not what your precinct is, but when you go in to get your ballot to say, I am a resident of Douglas Hills or resident of Middletown. And I've had arguments with the poll workers before.
Oh, I bet you have.
Didn't let you vote for yourself, Ron.
No, they didn't.
It's a wonder you got any votes. I'm I think so. Let me tell you, redistricting is coming up. It's really important. I hope everybody gets involved and is heard in that. That's a tremendously important question. I want to say a few things about my views on redistricting. Look, we're in politics, we're partisans, whether you're the city level or whether you're at the state level. But we ought to minimize to the extent possible that party influence in our mind. I don't think we should be splitting precincts, for example, for party reasons. The reason they did that is Jerry has part of those precincts and I have other parts because they were coming after a particular legislator. We shouldn't be splitting to the extent we possibly can go away from it. We shouldn't be splitting political jurisdictions. J-Town has, I think, 5 representatives. I mean, give me a break. We ought to be trying to keep political jurisdictions in play as much as possible. The district should be as compact as possible. By the way, that is a constitutional obligation. We should honor it. And I don't think, and I know this is controversial, But I don't think we should be going after incumbents. It won't affect me. I'm in the supermajority party. But I don't want to see us do what happened in the past. Three of my friends from Warren County were put in the same district in 2012, simply because they were a minority party. Look, we have 18 representatives in Jefferson County. 4 of them are Republicans. Ours are 14 Democrats. To the extent we possibly can, we should honor the decisions that the voters have already made in electing those representatives. And if it can possibly be done, incumbents shouldn't be put against one another. It's not right, and it dishonors the vote of that the people have already made. The populations at my district, Jerry Miller's district, is the biggest in the state. Mine's the 5th biggest in the state. Ken Fleming's the 3rd biggest in the state. The 2nd biggest in the state's in Northern Kentucky, and the 4th biggest in the state's in Lexington. Why? Because those are Republican districts. And so the smallest districts in the state are West Louisville and South Louisville. Why? Because those were in the majority then. Flip, so that just make sure it's not partisan, it's flipped in the Senate. Whereas Republicans are the smaller ones, and besides Julie Rocky Adams because of growth, and the Democrats are the biggest. So we don't need to be doing that. So the Constitution says you get the population of the state divided by 100, because there's 100 in the House, divided by 38 in the Senate. And then that's the base, and you can go up or down 5%. We don't need to be squeezing 5%. We need to respecting political jurisdictions, respecting precincts. We need respecting minority majority districts. We've got a number we need to keep and hopefully grow. Minority majority district. We need to keep that number as close to level as we possibly can. Also, with respect to Congress, I will not support, and I will fight with everything I have, any effort to crack Louisville. It doesn't help my party, but John Yarmouth has been elected by Louisville, and we should not crack Louisville for partisan purposes. What cracking means is divide it into thirds or halves or whatever. Louisville needs to be, it's too big to be one district, but it needs to be the heart of a district. It does not need to be cracked for partisan advantage. I won't support that, and I'll fight with everything I have to stop it. And there's no effort to do it right now, but if there is, I'll be kicking and screaming and trying to stop it.
I want to say something to you. The rest of you don't have to listen, but you have really stepped up this year. Your stock has gone up. I think you know that. So we've got a good one in you.
I appreciate that, Skipper.
Yeah.
Can I have you respond to the emails that are calling?
No, and I'm going to deny I said it if anybody else spreads the word.
I recorded it, Skipper.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew you would, Wolfman.
Well, I'll end on, I think one of the things you're referring to there, Skipper, and the check's in the mail, by the way. We had a number of impeachment petitions filed this year against Cameron, against a legislator who the allegations were that he strangled his wife, and then three against Governor Beshear. Over 90,000 citizens filed against Beshear. The speaker asked if I wanted to be on the impeachment committee, and I said, Speaker, I don't want the name Nemus and the word impeachment to be in the same paragraph ever. No, I don't want to. If you point me, obviously I'll serve. And he said, well, you're going to be the chairman. I knew that was very ominous. I knew what that meant. There's no right answer politically in that question. My goals were to do two things. One, to do what I thought was right, regardless of what any political outcome there was. And Beshear and I aren't buddies. I didn't vote for him. I won't vote for him the next time. But I had to do what was right, and he shouldn't, in my view, have been impeached. I've received a tremendous amount of pushback on that, but I did what I think was right, and I'm going to defend it. And I'm going to Republican parties meetings across the counties, getting beat up, but I'm defending the position and taking the heat. That's what we get elected. That's what I signed up for. The other thing is I didn't want our impeachment committee, since I was the chairman, to be a circus like it was in the federal government. And I'm very proud that whether you agree with the decision or not, it was not a circus. Nothing that I was going to chair was going to become that. And I did my best, and I'm very proud of the committee members that we didn't allow it to become a circus and get in the way of the important work that we had to do for Kentucky.
Jason, can I jump in real quick?
Hey, Matt.
Hey, can you touch on the medical marijuana bill and its failure?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So I'll be very quick. When I ran for office, I was against medical marijuana. I don't know how much support there was in the House and the Senate. I got on board about 4 years ago and am a very strong proponent of medical marijuana. The bill that we have now has been negotiated with a lot of different people, watered down way more than I want it to be, but we need to get it. We need to get it passed and get on the books because I'll tell a quick two quick stories. I'm campaigning in Anchorage and I'm knocking on the door. His 84-year-old Republican is all I know, and he's the only one registered to vote. So I knock on his door, big old boy. He's 6'4", and he says, "Hey, I'm Jason Nemes. I'm state representative running for blah blah blah. I can take you to his house, and I'll never forget. It's like it was yesterday." And he says, "Aren't you Jason Nemes, the guy that's pushing marijuana?" And I thought, by the way he said it, I gotta get ready because this big old boy.
Get ready, he's coming at you.
I got to defend myself. He's about to put a hurting on me. And I said, "Yes, sir, I am. And here's why." And he starts, Matt, I'm not going to tell you he got tear up. The dude started bawling. Never met him before in my life. 84-year-old fella starts bawling. I say, "Man, what's on your mind, brother? What's on your mind?" And he said, "My wife died last year. We've got 2 sons, and my wife couldn't get off the couch because she was so nauseous and suffering from the complications of her treatments. And we broke the law." He admitted to being a felon to me, this regular dude that lives in Anchorage. And he said, "It helped my wife live." So then, second story, I'm at St. Margaret Mary, and we're having a fundraiser. My 2 youngest boys go to St. Margaret Mary. We're having a fundraiser. It's only adults. And this man, 40 to 45 years old, comes up to me, and I could tell he was looking at me. That happens in elected officials, whatever. It is what it is. So my group left, and he came up to me, and he was shaking. And he said, "Are you Jason Nemes?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Thank you." I said, "For what, man? For what?" He said, "I can go to work because I take a puff every now and then." I don't know this dude. Our kids go to school together. He's admitting to a state rep that he's committing a felony. And I said, "Tell me why you say that." He said, "I've got MS. And it allows me to go to work and provide for my family." Let me ask you, Matt, who the hell do we think we are to get in the way of that old lady living her life last days, or to get in the way of this man providing for his family? Who do we think we are? So I put everything I've got behind medical marijuana. It passed 2/3 in the House last year. It hasn't gotten a vote in the Senate. I'm proud to say that our senator is for it, but we've got to get a vote in the Senate. We've got to get a vote, and it's already too late, but we got to get it next year. What happened? Okay. So 2/3 vote in the House. We could have got it passed this year in the House. Leadership made the decision. I'm upset with it, but I understand it. It's not unanimous, so it's divisive. And so if we're going to have something that's divisive, let's make sure we at least get a vote in the Senate. And so we're not going to call it in the House again. We've already proved we can pass it. We're not going to call it in the House again until we know we get a vote in the Senate. I don't agree with that call. I understand it. Bottom line is all the chips are in, and they're all in on the Senate. So we need a champion over there to get us a vote, because you guys know what it means to people. And I know I've made promises, and I'm going to keep them.
Jason, what are some of the rules involved with that? I mean, I haven't read your whole bill, but just out of curiosity, why is it? I know there's a lot of COVID stuff going on, and that's what's keeping it kind of off the Senate floor. But are they going to ever call it? And I mean, what's the big holdup? Is it just a few senators that they're just against it? Is that why?
There's a few
That's
senators.
what's going around on Facebook, is that it's just a few senators being heard.
So I was told in the House, you'll never get a vote when you do it won't pass. We got a vote, and then it didn't only pass, it passed 2/3 of the people. And by the way, we had 98 members then. The other 2 that have joined are for it. With the turnover, a lot of people said, well, you're not going to have as much because you beat a lot of Democrats. By the way, I was in charge of recruiting across the state for Republicans. You don't think this is one of the questions I asked them? So our strength in the House is even stronger, but I can only point to the board. So 2/3 now, it's even higher now. 2/3 then, it's even higher now. In the Senate, we have the votes. It's all a matter of getting a vote. I'm not in the business of poking my finger in the eyes of leadership, because I need them to call a vote. So I'm not going to be overly harsh, but I'm going to say that there are 5 people who can make it happen, and those 5 people need to make it happen. That's the Senate leadership, Republican leadership.
And they're up for reelection in 2022, right?
Some of them might be, I'm not sure. I know they have, in the Senate, they have half and half, I don't know when those 5 folks are up for election. Our senator is up for reelection. She's for it strongly. We just need to, get the other ones to call for a vote. When it gets called for a vote, it's going to pass, and it's going to pass in overwhelming numbers, just like it did in the House. I want to say, while we're on the call, one of the ways you get things to pass is you get important organizations to support it. The League of Cities was a champion and jumping on board and pushing. And let me just say straight up, I went to that meeting and it was good. It was good conversation, but Bonnie Jung changed it. She and a mayor from, I think it was Middlesboro in Bell County, really took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and got the League of Cities to be for it. And what that means is, politicians are fearful, right? Because they want to get reelected. They're worried about where everybody's going to be. I remember when I came out for medical marijuana, I thought, oh man, I'm in front of my skis. I don't think this is going to be popular. But anyway, so Bonnie and the mayor of Middlesboro got out in front and pushed like heck and got the League of Cities to be on board. And the importance of that is it gives politicians, members of the House and Senate, a little bit of courage. There was a guy, a Kentucky Supreme Court justice named Jim Keller. He's passed away. He's from Harlan County. He represented Lexington, moved to Lexington. He was the best storyteller in the state. Skipper, you remember him. He would always say, you got to give us courage or cover. And so I'm trying to give as much courage and cover as I can give. And Bonnie helped with that.
I
Thank
do have a question in chat for you. It said, with Representative Miller announcing his retirement, are you ready to endorse Ron Wolf for state representative for the 38th district?
I'll knock doors for him.
Time to return the favor, Jason.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay, any more questions, comments? Well, we are
Jason,
right.
thank you for your leadership and your hard work this session. It is greatly appreciated by those of us who watch it, and especially those that you represent. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
And I want to thank you. I feel like you're very sincere, and when you talk, you just listen to what you have to say, and you keep it at I think a level that everybody can kind of understand, and you just do a great job. So I want to say thank you too. And you've been a big supporter of this chamber, and very visible. You'll see Jason once in a while at some of our luncheons or events that we host. So if you've not met him in person, make sure you take the time to do that, if you all are ever in the same place at the same time. So
Thank you, guys.
with that being said, Jason, again, thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and we will see you soon at the next event. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Laura.
Great meeting.
Hey, Laura, give me a call. Give me a
Okay,
call.
I'll do
All
it.
right. Tell you, I met with that lady. So
Okay, great.
give me a call.
Okay.
Jason, you're a